Okay. Once again, good evening, everybody. And today we'll be talking about tables. Tables. I think we started this conversation on tables yesterday, and it's important that we understand what tables are. I think that conversation was already started yesterday. The conversation as to what tables are, what they can be used for, and how to use tables. I believe that that particular conversation was handled yesterday. So we won't go back to that particular part of this conversation. So today we'll be going straight up into understanding how to implement tables, how tables can be used, and the things that you can achieve using tables in HTML. So I'll be sharing my screen right about now. Then we can go straight into this conversation. As I mentioned yesterday, tables are used to manage data collected, right? Now, so when you collect data, I need a proper way to present that data. You use tables to present your data. So when you have a collection, a group collection, as I mentioned this, I was very intentional about the word grouped collection. Now, a group collection could be name of people, could be name of, could be list of anything. So as long as it is a list, you can have that data displayed using a table. Can we see my screen, please? Can everyone see my screen, please?
Yeah, I
Perfect.
can
Thank you
see
very
it from my
much.
end.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Okay, so we have what we call the table element. So table is not something extraordinary. You're not bringing an element that does not look like it. So the name of that particular element is just called table. So let me create my index.html first off. Index.html. And then, of course, this. Yes, so tables. I'll call these tables. I believe everyone can see my screen. Let's expand this a little. Okay, perfect. So we have name. This is how you develop a table. You just have table. That is just it. So what this does for you right now is that it has already provisioned that the element you're about to build is a table. It's a table. Now, table consists of rows and columns. Table consists of rows and columns. Now, every table cell, every table cell is defined by a TD tag. So every table cell, plus those individual boxes in a table, is defined using TD. So you need a table to actually have those 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 items. You specify them using TD. Now, yesterday I mentioned that tables are made up of rows and columns. They are made up of rows and columns. Please hold on. Sorry, can you see my screen?
Yeah, I can see it from my
Okay,
end.
okay, thank you very much. Okay, so okay. Now, as I was saying, it's made up of rows and columns. Now, to specify the rows, what we call TR, is what we use to specify the row. Now, the columns are made up of we know rows is just the horizontal guys. Now the columns are made up of different table data. So when you have table row, now for you to actually specify the cells in those rows, now use what we call the table data, TD. Now the TD, you can first of all say, okay, the first row is the table heading, that header of the table, which can be for example, name, TD, you can say phone number, TD, we can say email address, CD, we can say gender. Now, if we decide to go live, let's see what we have here.
Hello, Mr. Manuel.
Yes, I can hear you.
Someone saying, is it possible to zoom your VS Code? I think maybe she can see that. Is it possible to zoom it?
Okay, let me see if it's,
Yeah, thank you.
Is it better? Is it better?
Is it better?
No, it's still not. How should I put it? No, not too clear from my own end. I can't see it properly. It's very faint.
It's very faint from your end. Why is that so? What is it? Smell it. Hold on, let me stop sharing. Okay, how about now? Is it visible now?
Yes. Yes, sir.
Okay, so it's visible now.
Yes, sir.
Okay, so let's continue. Let's go ahead. So I've specified this table rule. I've specified the table rule and table data. Now, with that specification, I'm thinking I would have to share my whole screen because I would have to be navigating between, because I'll have to be navigating between my VS Code and my local server. Oh, okay. So let's just continue doing. So what I've done here is this. This is table row. This is one row. Now in this one row, there are multiple cells. Now the cells are name, phone number, email address, and gender. Now we can also have another table row that now actually contains the main data that we need to have. So the first name could be John Doe. The next phone number could be 0802222 that. Email address, John at gmail.com, gender, male. So when we have this and we have to view it, let me just quickly share my screen. Okay, so this is what we have so far. So this is what we have. But if you observe something, the tables are not actually properly aligned. They're not properly aligned. It does not look like a table. And that's where you will need to write styles. You will need to write styles in this. So with that in mind, what we could do is that in our head session, we introduce the style and say table with 100%. Now, if we do that, we should have aligned properly like this. So what we have done here is that we have specified the width of the overall table. That's why it is evenly spread out. Now you can decide to set whatever width you need to set on this table. It might not be, it doesn't have to be 100%, it can be 50%, but all depends on what you are trying to achieve with that table. Now, these tables actually just look all lined out, just looks all straightened out. There's no separation between anything and any data. So that would now require you to actually do some table borders. But before we go to table borders, let's now come back to something different. Now, if you observe, this particular section of this table is actually a heading of the table. It's actually the heading of the table. So it's important that we make it look different. Now, I'm going to change a particular information. Instead of using just normal table data, TD, I'm going to now use TH, which now specifies table head. In as much as table data and table head practically have the same responsibility, it's important. It's important that we use table head. Why? It already solves some problems for us. Now, if you observe, automatically this guy is already boldened and centralized. But in the other case where we had the table data, we will have to start centralizing and bolding the table head by ourselves. But at this point, what this has done is it makes it easier. The job has been done for us already to a very large extent. So that's how important using the TH is to a table structure. I don't know if you follow. You will follow to this point. Any confusions? Okay. I'm not talking to myself. Can we hear me?
Yeah.
Hope I was not talking to myself. Okay, okay,
You can hear you.
okay. Thought I was talking to myself. Okay, cool. So let's go ahead. Let's go ahead very quickly. Let me see what do I. Okay, good. So in continuing, there will be need to now place borders in this table data and table head. So that will now require us to still come back to our styling. Have to come back to our styles. And then we could say table th td. Now this whatever I've written right now will be better understood next week when you start CSS. But just understand that what I'm doing right now is this. That's what I've just done, right? I'm doing what's called multiple selectors here. I'm selecting table as an element, selecting th, which is this table head, and also selecting td, which is also this element. So this is me doing what we call a multi-selector in CSS. I'm selecting multiple items to give them the same styling, which is 1 pixel solid black. So if once I do that, okay, tables. So this is what we have. So now we have the overall table has a border. Then each of these table headers have borders, and each of these table rows have borders. That's how we specify our table with borders. Now, there are other several things you could do with this table. For example, you would want this table to actually have a round edge. So it will have border radius, and say border radius 20 pixels. And we do that, would have the rounded table. But let's say this border radius, I only want the inside to have that particular border radius. So at this point, I have to make sure that all I am styling is my TH and TD. I think I have to just move this border radius downstairs. And then at this point, my table will remain at the boxy point, but the TD and TH all have become rounded with that border radius. Now, you can actually, in a situation whereby you don't want to see all these spacings beside this table, these spaces, you just want it to be a straight table. So I'm going to remove this. This was just me playing around. Yeah. So you don't want these spaces. You can do what they call border collapse. Something called border collapse in tables. So when we implement border collapse, and we say collapse, what happens is we have instructed the system to collapse all borders, meaning that there is no space between the borders anymore. All the borders just come in as one. So that's where we have this table looking this way. So I'm going to add something called padding so that the table can have some breathing space. Padding, and I'll use a padding of 5 pixels. So you can have some breathing space around it. Now, I can also decide to probably give a color. Say I want my table head to have a different color. I can just set up a background color and call it aquamarine, for example. Now, if we do that, we'd have table header has a color of its own, and the body has a color of its own. Now, it's not necessary that the table the lines must always be solid. Lines can be dotted, it can be dotted, it can be dashed, even though the application of these are actually very rare. It can be dashed, but more often than not, you'll find tables with solid borders. So the borders don't have to always be um, solid, which is straight lines. Now, sometimes you can decide to actually play with the color around this particular border. Sometimes you might not just want the border to be black. You could want it to be a color, say probably red, which is very weird also. But the idea is this: you have the opportunity to play with whatever colors you want to play with, play whatever border style you want to play with, play whatever padding style you want to play. If I want to increase this padding, I can simply just increase it from 5 to 15, and the space between the elements, the space inside the element is increased. I think I even like this more. I should make it 12 pixels then. I think I like that more. Make it 12 pixels. So moving forward, I think I've already done the width, already explained the width, how it works. So the width can be 100%, can be whatever percentage that we need to use per time. So it depends on what we are trying to implement. Now, when we're trying to implement a system where the table is 100% is full width, we use full width. When it's not supposed to be full width, we know whatever width it can give. Now, the sizing can either be relative or absolute. We have what we call relative sizes and what we call absolute sizes. Relative sizes are sizes that actually depend on another sizing to actually have the actual sizing. So, for example, if I'm saying 100%, 100%. So what 100% means that it's taking 100% of the allocated space that it has. Now, if I put this table on a container that is like this position here, for example, let me just quickly do that. So I'm going to move this table very quickly and put it in a div and give the div a class of table container. Now I can decide, say, okay, this table container, and I say dot table container with 100 pixels or 300 pixels. Let's see what happens here. Now, have you observed what's happening here? Now, this was happened here. Initially, we set this table to be 100%. It is not 100% as a definite width. It is 100% of its container, of its containing vessel. So it is contained in a table container that has a width of 300 pixels. So what that table will automatically take as its width is 100% of 300 pixels, which means that the table width is 300 pixels. So that is when you mean that a size is relative. So it's relative to its container. Now, percentage is relative. REM and EM are all relative. REM and EM are all relative. Sophia, go ahead. Sophia, I have a question.
So please, I don't understand this, please.
Okay, what's your confusion? The percentage?
Yes, the explanation about the absolute and relative size is not
Okay,
clear.
okay, good. Let me quickly use an analogy to try and explain that. Right. So uh let me think of a quick analogy. Think of a quick analogy. Now, the fact that you are in Nigeria makes you a Nigerian. Let me start from that angle while I think of something that spins up that quickly. The fact that you're in Nigeria makes you a Nigerian. It doesn't matter where you are, but the fact that your identity is Nigeria, that's what makes you a Nigerian. Now, relative basically means that this is how relative sizing works. This is how relative sizing works. I am bound to a container size. So my size with respect to that relative value that's been given to me now is tied to whatever the full container is. This table container is 300 pixels. Now, whatever size I'm going to give this table will be relative to its container because it is inside this div container. So whatever size I'm going to give it, whatever, as far as it is relative. Now, I'm saying 100%, right? Now, 100% of what? Of what? You know, when we talk about percentage, we're always talking about a percentage of 50% of something, 100% of something, 20% of something, 5% of something. That is what a relative value basically does. So when you say this table is 100%, the next question is of what, right? 100% of what? Now it checks for its nearest container. What is the width of its nearest container? The width of its nearest container in this situation is 300 pixels. So what this particular table width becomes is 100% of 300 pixel, which in this case is 300 pixel because 100% is one, definitely one times 300 pixels, 300 pixel. Now, but if I should by chance make this 50%, for example, 50% of what 300 pixel is 150. Width should be 50%. Let me quickly confirm that. The width should be 50%. Should be, sorry, should be 300 pixel. I can't. Let me just get this table with 50%. They're not showing me the 150 pixel. But this is what I'm trying to make you understand here. This is the point. Whenever you see percentage, EM, REM, FR, which is fraction, what those values are definitely relative. It means that you're asking for a percentage of something, 50% of the container. Just have that at the back, at the front of your mind, not the back. 50% of the container. Now, if I make this 50 pixels, pixel is an absolute unit, means that it is not tied to its container. 50 pixel is 50 pixel anywhere in the world. Now, also note this. Sometimes the percentage might not be to its direct container. Like, for example, might not have a container at all. So it becomes a percentage, a relative value of the screen size. 100% of the screen size, 50% of the screen size. That is why in some some websites, you discover that when you view it on desktop view, you discover that there is a table, there is a card that takes 50% of that screen. But when you come to mobile view, it automatically takes 100% of the screen. That's because you have to write media query to be able to check the screen size and now use that relative value with respect to the screen size. So basically, relative values are concerned about the container, but absolute value are not concerned about the container at all. So for example, this table container is 300 pixel and I put the background color to be yellow. No, let's use green, green, yellow, and I am setting the table to be say 400 pixels. Now observe that the table itself has superseded the container. So this way the container stopped and the table has superseded the container. The table is not concerned about the container size. But when we do this, let's see. Good. Okay. 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 Yes. I know why. Okay. So do you understand? Do you get the point now? Hello? Who
Yes,
asked
sir.
that question? Sophia, right? Do you
Yes.
understand
Thank
now? Do you
you.
understand the whole relative thing? Okay, correct. So moving
Okay.
forward, moving forward, moving forward. Now, let me quickly add this, right? You can actually make different items have different widths. Case, uh, in this case here, say for example, I want email address to be longer than the others, or for example, full name should be longer than the others, should be wider rather than the others. I can simply add a style here and say width. Let's call it 70. That relative sizing. Usually, did I just increase? I increased phone number. Sorry, not phone number. Name. So the name has now taken 70% of the overall size. Now you can decide to just make some cells, different sizes, variable sizes, and all that. You can actually decide to also modify the height of rows. That still works if you need to. Now, in some situations, you might need your table to be vertically or aligned. You want to have vertical tables, so vertical table headers. Now, in this case, it becomes quite different. So instead of having table header and table header, you can modify it, and then you would have. Yes, who's there? Go ahead, please. Okay, I thought I saw a hand. Okay, doing battery low. Okay, that's fine. Uh, so we can have, for example, multiple items. So I'm going to just cross this out and say table head, name, table data, Peter, James, Jack. So now the difference here is this: instead of having multiple, instead of having all the table headers listed out at once and all the table bodies listed out at once, the table rows now you have email, and then you now have table data at email.com. John at gmail.com. So when we do this is all we have a situation whereby our tables now is aligned vertically. So we have names aligned this way and email aligned in this pattern. In this case, we have avoided having our horizontal columns. We now have vertical headings. So the headings are this way, and the values are on this other way. The application of this might not come very often, except in some rare cases. Now, your table headers, please, I'll have to let me return to the other table that we're using. Return to the other table. Okay, so if you observe, your table here is at the center. Your table header rather is at the center. You can actually align it to the left. Basic and simple, as direct as that can be. So we have table head, and you say text align left. Text align left. So this aligns to the left, which means that if you don't want to align your table head to the left, but you want your table data to actually come to the center, you can actually align that way and say text align center. So instead of bringing this guy to the left, you have moved everything to the center, which means that the alignment works all around. You can actually align it right, depending on what you are trying to achieve. So everything here depends on what you are trying to achieve. If you are trying to make sure that the table headers are all aligned to the left, you know that this is your go-to solution. This is your go-to solution. And then this guy goes out, aligned the way it is. Now, on some occasions, in some occasions, you might want to have multiple, um, one header for multiple columns. For example, this is name, phone number, email, and gender. Now, you wouldn't want to have a first name and second name column. You just want to have name, but in that name, you want to capture both the first name and second name. So you can just have TD, oh, sorry, TD, John Doe. Now, but this is supposed to be 4, but now showing 5 because the last one is actually separate. This is mail, email, phone number, and these two guys are actually on that name. But you don't want to have a separate name, first name and last name. So what you just do is you can just call span and say 2. So what you do with call span 2 as an attribute is that it makes your column span across 2 fields at the same time. So this is John and Doe on that name. Now you can do this for any of the fields you want to, any of the fields you want to. For example, you want the user to be able to have 2 phone numbers. I can just copy this. Let me just copy this quickly and modify this phone number. So phone number, which is not correct. So we are going to have this also call span 2. And this also spans across. So basically, when you want to have multiple headers, it can be 3, it can be 4, it can be 5, as many as you want to achieve. You actually can have that. You can actually have that. Now, something called table caption. Caption, yes. So we can actually have a caption for this table. It's a caption list of people with, I don't know what I want to write there. Just list of people, basically. So this is the caption of the table, list of people. Now you can actually decide to actually play around with the styling of caption. Caption, let's say font size, could be a related absolute 20 pixels. Let's see. Complex. Okay, so moving forward. Okay, so the same way we have call span, we also have row span. The same way we have call span, we also have row span, which means that you can actually make your element actually slide across 2 rows. The same application with call span, the difference isn't much. It's the same application with call span. So I'm going to write something quite complicated, something not complicated, that's not the word, something that might look like it wants to play with your head a little, but I want to beg you, do not panic. Do not panic what I'm about to do right now. Something quite simple, but it's just a little calculation. So I'm going to have to increase these fields. Jan, increase these fields. More fields to what I'm about to do. Okay, so now I have multiple fields. Now, in a situation whereby I want my tables to be striped, I want the first one striped, second one white, third one striped, I can actually do a kind of CSL combinator that does some calculation. And I say int child equals int child. Let me do odd. Let's use odd. Let's use odd. Let's see what happens. background color blue. Let's use blue so we can see how clear it looks. Okay, good. So this is what happens here. So what I've done here is this: 1, 2, 3. That is for the rules. Now, if I want to repeat this, do the same thing for, I'm sorry, that's for the table data. I can just apply this for the table rules, and then would have this 1, 2, 3, 4. No, I want it for the even. So that thing that becomes even here actually gives me even. So I've used even. Yeah, so this is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So if I keep increasing this data, this is what happens here. If I should multiply this data, let's say I copy this 2, and I have more added. Sorry, why is it closing? I'm not closed it. Okay, so what did I just write? What did I just make happen? This is very simple. So I'm calculating TTR or to style TR, but then nth child, which is like the number of the item that exists. So this is it. TR, how many items does it have? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 6. So there are actually 6 items. So I can decide which particular item to style here. So even basically specifies the kind, the actual child that you want to style. So if I say odd, it styles all odd items. If I say even, it styles all even items. If I want to style a particular item, let's say I want to style the third item, I can just say n child 3, and it styles just the third item. That is 1, 2, and 3. If you got that. 1, 2, and 3. Now, in some cases, we might not necessarily want a full width background color like this, or rather, we might not want a full border color this way. So instead of having this whole border here, this whole border thing, I'm going to comment this guy out. So all I will have here will be TR, and I can say border bottom. Let's use gray. It's not even clear enough. That bottom, sorry, 1 pixel solid gray. So once we do that, it's not picking up. TR background color, take this guy out first. Solid red. Okay, so that's what we have. Then border collapse. Border collapse. Border collapse. Collapse. So in this case, I just wanted to just have lines underneath it. I just wanted to have lines underneath it without the full boxes, just bottom lines, and that is what this has achieved for me. Let me see why my gray color wasn't working. Doesn't need me to. Okay, gray works then. Yes. So I can decide to actually add a padding. That padding can be 10 pixels, so it looks better. Good. So now the table head, I think I don't like that color, so let's use something different. Let's use gray so our table can look better. Okay, boom. Now, I mentioned something about hover. That was on that was yesterday, I think. Something about hover. So I can actually make sure that each of these items can be hovered on. So I'll write hover sudo. So I can then say background color Let's use the same grid now for the table data rather, and then pointer so so pointer. So what happens here is when I hover, it picks a particular color. So I can choose whatever color I want to have when my mouse is hovered on any of these items in my table. So that is the hover function, hover studio class. Moving on, moving on. So one last thing I need to do here. Let me do one last thing here before I call it a day on this particular conversation around tables is tr border pixels solid red something like here. Okay, call span. So I can actually have a row span here. So let's do the row span thing here. Here we can now row span 2. So at this point, this particular row spans 2 rows. Now, just like the call span, the use cases would actually not be very many. Use cases for items like this will not be very many. You hardly have items where you need to span the row. So these are just knowledge that is good to have just in case you come at a time when you actually get to experience any of these things part time. So that's it for the tables. I think the rest of it, once you play around with it, you're able to get to understand and see how to actually use some things and play around some things. So I can let me just add a border radius here and see if this guy looks a little better. Now it doesn't look as I want it to look, so there's no need for that. Okay, so that's that for that. Any questions? Any questions? Schneider, go ahead, please.
Alright, so please, I was wanting to ask, do we get to, like, are we assuming a particular number of pixels for when designing something, or there is a precise amount, a number of pixels that we cannot exceed that?
Sorry, I didn't get that. Sorry, I didn't get that. Can you please repeat?
What I was saying is that I was wondering if we actually do we guess the number of pixels to use, or there's a precise amount of pixels that we get to use and do not exceed from them.
Um, First off, you try to know the size of your system device. Now, it's almost impossible. No, not almost impossible. There are what we call breakpoints. What we call breakpoints when it comes to designing or designing basically for the web. That's what we call breakpoints. 1024, 700 and something, 500 and something, 400 and 300 and something. These are breakpoints. These are basically the widths under which different screen sizes fall under. So when you are designing and you have to use pixels, it is important that at the back of your head you have the size somewhere in your head and know what you want to achieve. Now, if you know that you are building for a phone that the screen size is 340 pixel, for example, you know that whatever you are doing, the width should not be more than 335, 340 pixel. And if you follow it, otherwise you will have an overflow on the y-axis. So when it comes to, especially when it comes to width, you have to be more intentional about the width of this screen, the media rather you want to implement on. If it's a laptop that is 1240, you know, okay, this is a laptop of 1240. Now you know that your width should be around 1000 or 1020, 900 and something pixels. But now it is always advisable to stick more to relative units. I think by Monday, when you get to CSS, when we get to talk about units, you get to understand REM, EM, and percentage. Stick more to these units because they make responsiveness easier. So when you stick to your REM or EM, uh they make responsiveness easier. So you're not guessing these pixels. No, you're not. You should know the screen size. Over time, you will learn to know the screen sizes that exist and the screen size you're working on per time. So that will also help you. That will help you make an informed decision as to the width of any element you want to have. Did
All
you get
right,
that,
sir.
please?
Thank you. Yes, I did. Thank you very much.
Okay. Any further questions? Any further questions? Any further questions? So I want to believe that this is understood. Sorry, I forgot to stop record.